This computer, okay. All right, I'm recording now. Welcome, welcome. For those of you who didn't get a chance to say hello live, please type in the chat box your name, where you're from, why you're here, or any other questions. And my co-host Brian Higginbotham, who also hosts a Nature Journal Club on Saturday mornings, is here. So give a shout out to Brian. He's going to be in the background there helping me out. All right, so a little bit about me, for those of you who don't know. My background is as a naturalist and a scientist and an educator, and I just feel passionate about bringing people into nature, guiding them, giving you opportunities to be closer to nature wherever you are, even if you can't get outside, especially, especially now, but for sometimes people can't get outside for whatever reason. So I want to give opportunities for all of you to start a relationship with nature if you don't already have one, or deepen that relationship if you do. And one of the ways that I do that for myself is through nature journaling. And I've kept a nature journal since 1998, and it has been a progression, and it's evolved over time, as you can imagine. Let's see, sorry, I just got distracted. I've had some mentors and some books that I've read that really helped me give some skills and some ideas and suggestions on different ways that I could observe nature and record them in my nature journal. So I've come to understand that for me, nature journaling is a way for me to be closer to nature, to observe nature more carefully, and then using drawings to sketch those, what I see, using words and numbers, measurements, counts, to enhance that relationship and learning that I'm doing in nature. And as a scientist, I've kept a field journal, so it was not difficult for me to measure things, but the problem I got into was measuring too many things and too many detail and getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And what I am trying to do in the last couple of years is really step back and actually use all of my senses and see nature through a broader lens. So like seeing nature from my heart instead of just from my eyes and my brain. So nature journaling has really transformed since meeting John Muir Laws, who most of you know, or many of you know. John Muir Laws has some really great books. He has a book that's out right now. You can buy online. Go to johnmuirslaws.com. I think it's in a store. Brian might be typing the little URL there for you. You can get his newest nature journal book, which is meant for educators, but it's great for everybody. And I'll be doing some of the activities on these calls from that book, so you can feel free to check it out. You can also download it free, the PDF version. He has some other books. Claire Walker Leslie is another excellent resource. She was the first nature journaling book that I got and really helped shape my style. And then someone mentioned, I think Marlene mentioned, finding your style. And I'm going to show you some pictures of my work and other people's work, but that's John Muir Law's work. That's not the only way to nature journal. So I want to encourage anyone who's here that you're going to discover your style, and there's no wrong way to do it. And everyone's going to look different. It's going to, with 22 people, if we sketch the same tree, we're going to have 22 different drawings because of who we are and how we see that tree. We see it in different ways. So with that, I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to share my screen, and I created a little slideshow here to help with some visuals. Okay, and let me know if you're not seeing this. It should say Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club virtual meeting. Can you give me a thumbs up? Awesome. All right, so gosh, I can't believe it's the end of April. Oh, for those of you who are new, I've decided I'm going to do this from May. So every Sunday in May, you can hop on and join. I'm recording the calls. If you would like a recording to revisit this, send me a message on Facebook or an email, and I'll give you my contact at the end, and I can send it to you or send you the link. All right, so just to cover last week, we did a micro hike. Well, I call it a micro hike, but it's also called a belly hike, or a 12-inch hike, or John Muir Laws calls it a string safari. It's in his new book. But basically, we took a little hike in nature. We took a string and wrapped it around a little circle of land or ground, and we focused in this small area on what kind of nature was there, and we drew what we saw. And as always, we put in the metadata, the date, the time, the location, and we used words and pictures and numbers just to let you know, for those of you who are probably might be feeling a little apprehensive about drawing for whatever reason, we use words and pictures together and numbers, and that helps to lessen that maybe nervousness we have about drawing. And for those of you who are artists and love painting and drawing, this is a challenge to put some words and some measurements in those drawings to make it a nature journal to help us explore nature. And let's see, my next slide. So here's a couple of pages from folks that were here last week and posted on the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club Facebook group. They were posted their images. So we've got one here. Oh, let's see, is that, my slides are being covered up here. We have an iris patch with lots of words for I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of. So this is one example of how you can approach nature. And Celia, who's also in our group, did a close-up of the different plants that were in the little square. And here we've got Marcel, who's also on the call. Good morning, calling from Germany. I didn't get a chance to see if you were going to be here. I'm so glad to see you. So Marcel did this great thing where he visited a piece of pavement outside, and he drew a map of what he was seeing and some really great observations. And there were ways that you can, let me go back. I like the zoom in, the close up. I don't know if you can see, can you see my cursor moving around? Yeah, okay. So here's this like a green squiggly thing. You don't have to put a lot of detail because you just draw this line out and say, oh wait, these are clovers. And then even more detail, Marcel noticed that there was something going on with the edge, and he zoomed in again and showed the serrated edge. And then I love this part where he's showing like, this is looking down at the sidewalk, but then when you look at the side, you get the side profile. So, and then this is a cross section. He's imagining, you can imagine what's going on underneath, or you can draw it if you actually see it. And then I love these questions, like he's not sure what it is, but put those questions in there. And another way to do is you can draw an area. So this was my circle, and I drew little symbols for where I found each of those plants, and I put a legend on the side, and then drew the pictures around it with arrows. And so that's another way to do that. And just because you missed micro hike last week doesn't mean that you can't do it this time. So I was just sharing this so that if you want another an activity to do this week, that might be something kind of fun to try. Okay, so for today, I wanted to talk about observing nature through direct observation. That means observing directly with your own eyes and your senses what's in front of you. And that is such a powerful tool to not only learn about what's in your nearby nature, but also have a deeper connection with the earth. And it's also very relaxing to be in nature, right? Even if we just spend 5 minutes outside, research is showing that, folks that can even look through a window at a natural view versus a building view, that you're going to reduce your stress levels, that you're increasing your moods of feeling better, and you're able to concentrate more, you are calmer. A whole slew of research shows that, nature has benefits. I know you guys know that because you're here nature journaling, right? So I wanted to say that, our early naturalists in history spent time in nature recording their observations. So we're doing what naturalists and scientists did for many, many decades, hundreds of years. And even before that, naturalists, native peoples were observing nature. They may not be recording it in nature journal like we do, but they were making close observations because they had to know what kind of plants were poisonous and what kind of plants were good to eat, what kind of plants were good for healing different ailments, what kind of trees were good for building, that kind of thing. So they had a really close connection with nature. Just a few naturalists here, John Muir, who traveled everywhere on foot, just traveled and took in all the sights, wrote a lot about what he was observing, what he was feeling. or what nature made him feel. And sharing that has given hundreds and hundreds of people, or thousands probably, of people um, a look into nature in a different way through his lens. Charles Darwin, you know, he took close observations. There's a picture here of the little finches there. You know, he's famous for writing The Origin of Species, but you know, but he couldn't have come there if he wasn't observing nature, drawing pictures, asking questions, making connections, the same kind of things that we're doing with as nature journalers. John James Audubon, he observed birds. Now, he wasn't looking at the live birds, he looked at dead birds, but still, in order to paint the dead birds, he had to focus on all the details of the feather, the anatomy, the bill, the eye. You know, some of the posture was a little weird because they were dead, but he drew what he saw. And that's really powerful. And that's what we also do as nature journalers. Rachel Carson also spent a lot of time in nature in very in her area on the East Coast. And she was most famous for Silent Spring, but she would not have been able to come to that conclusion that pesticides were causing harm if she wasn't watching nature, if she wasn't being outside, if she wasn't noticing that, isn't that funny? You know, those birds that used to be here all the time aren't here anymore. I wonder why. So, you know, I just want to just put out there that if you feel like you're not a naturalist and I can't do this, that, you know, not to worry, you know, this is a skill building activity. So we are using pictures, drawings, paintings, sketches, diagrams. We're going to use words to ask questions, you know, note our observations, and numbers. We might count how many things or how many times, or measure how tall, how wide, how small, how thick, how thin. And, you know, this questioning, the curiosity that gets stimulated just breeds more questions and more questions. And that's science, you know, that's how new hypotheses are formed and new discoveries are made. And I think a great way of when we observe nature is that we're building our own personal knowledge, right? So you can ask someone, hey, what is that plant over there? And then some expert could give you the name and give you like what time it blooms and blah, 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 blah. You can go on a website, you can look at it, but until you make that observation yourself, I find that it doesn't get remembered the same way. And so you're building your own knowledge by drawing and noticing, and then you're sharing that with others, like we are on this call at the end. We're all going to share what we've discovered, and then that's expanding all of our knowledge, right, through your own direct observation. So and also science disciplines, you know, we keep scientists keep detailed notes, field notes, you know, whether you're a biologist or a chemist or geologist or in medicine, we're always taking notes, because our memory is not very reliable, right? Will I remember a week, something you see today, will I remember a week from now what time that bird sang and how many of those birds sang? Will I remember in a month or in a year? You know, at the moment it might not be important, but you know, what if I ended up doing this every week and like, oh shoot, I wish I had recorded that, you know, in my notebook a month ago. So you know, just noting those things would be really helpful. And then as you note them, more questions will arise and you will deepen your own understanding and learning. And there isn't anything wrong with going online and delving deeper into something you've seen, but I think that seeing it yourself and asking your own questions and drawing with your eye and your hand together is really, really powerful. So I'm going to introduce the activity for today. It's called, it's a species account. So that's just kind of a fancy word for, on a page, draw one thing, one species, one subject, and we're going to draw all kinds of things about it. And it's a really powerful approach to learning nature. And this could be you know, a good start to, if you're not sure what to draw, and it's also a great start to kind of diving deeper into that species. So you might select something you know nothing about. You may select something that you see every day that you have some questions about. So I'm just going to do on my little whiteboard here an example of maybe what we might do. So right here. So let's say I'm going to go out there today and I'm going to, I ended up picking, let's say there's a plant that's growing on my lawn, and I want to know a little bit more about it. And it kind of looks like this. So I might draw, okay. So just know it doesn't have to have a lot of detail, right? You can pin my video momentarily. If you mouse over my little screen, you can, the little blue square with 3 dots, you can click pin video and it should pop up bigger. So you can see this, because I'm going to come back to the slides. Okay, so you might, this is my page. You might do that, and then maybe maybe we're going to do this zoom out technique, because I see this really cool detail on this leaf that I don't want to draw 5 million little fuzzy dots or whatever's going on. So I'm going to do zooming out, and then I'm going to do let's see, this leaf close up, and let's say that there's lots of hairs all over it. Oh, wait, let's say that the hairs are in a line. How's that? They're in a line down the center of the leaf, and I want to show that detail, so I'm going to zoom it out and draw it up close. So that's one technique, zooming in, zooming out. Give more detail, so I don't have to spend half an hour on those little hairs. And then I might have some questions. So, you know, I like bullet points, right? They're easier to see. The line, just, you know, do some bullet points. And as you're with your plant or rock or bug or whatever you end up doing, if a question pops into your mind, write it down right away. Because what happens if you don't write it down right away, it's gonna float away. It's not gonna stay in our memory. So when that question pops up, write it down wherever on your page. This is not necessarily about making a beautiful page. This is about getting stuff in your brain and your connection with nature out onto paper to deepen your understanding. Okay, so you might do this, or maybe what I like is, you know, I'm gonna give you a sense of scale. So I'm gonna draw a little person on the bottom, and then I'm going to show that the plant is that big. But maybe you're looking at a tree. If you're looking at a tree, maybe your tree looks like this. Right? So if you draw that, you get a sense of how big or small your thing is, even without numbers. So coming to the numbers part, you can do, I think this is about 50 feet, right? You can just do, you don't have to have exact measurements. You might say this is about 6 inches. You know, the leaf is about 6 inches. And maybe I'm gonna say there's 3 plants. There's 3 of these plants on my lawn, or in my lawn. So you can count. Maybe you can count the number of leaves. How many leaves are on this plant? Okay, so zooming out, making long distance, far distance, and then maybe different views. So maybe the cool thing about this plant is I'm gonna make a plan view, or plan view also means bird's eye view, or looking down on something. So let's say when I'm looking down on this plant, I noticed that it makes this pretty star shape. So maybe you're gonna draw your plant from above. Or maybe there's something really cool on the back of your leaf. So these are just some ways, and put lots of words, right? Oh, and maybe pointing, little pointers, right? Words and pointers. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, so going back to species account. So recording the observations of one species. And if you can't get outside, look around and see if you have a house plant or something. You know, you can even grab a potato, right? Potato, maybe it's sprouting. And you can, you know, draw the sprouts of your potato. Or, you know, something in your kitchen, right? I'm sure there's something that you can grab that you can draw. Or here's another one. Maybe you've collected some shells or pine cones or some branches in your house. You can even start there, and you can wonder what the whole plant looks like of this part. Or a shell, draw the shell up close, take measurements, and then your questions could be, I wonder what kind of animal lived in here, I wonder what it looked like. So when we use these 3 prompts, the I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, if you have been on any of John Muirlaw's calls, you'll recognize these phrases, but for those of you who haven't, these are just 3 easy prompts to help us kind of focus the the observations. So I notice statements are, you know, what are you seeing? So be specific, you know, instead of I see leaves, I see green leaves, you could describe, oh, I see green leaves with yellow veins, or I see triangular shaped leaves with red edges, or the back of the leaf is white, you know, whatever you're actually seeing, observing. Um, and then the next prompt, I wonder, you're going to ask all the who, what, where, when, why, how questions, right? You don't have to do them all. This is just, you know, giving you an idea of what this encompasses, the I wonder. You know, I wonder about whatever question pops up in your mind about, like, gosh, I wonder what it is. I wonder if it's edible. I wonder why, blah, blah, blah. I wonder how this multiplies or seeds itself, whatever the question is. And then it reminds me of, so, you know, this is going to be a really great way to kind of anchor this experience in your memory when you're thinking about the different connections. How is this connected to something else in my environment? So it reminds me of, you know, maybe it reminds you of, you know, a different kind of plant that you grew up with, or maybe it reminds you of not a plant, but some other thing, something completely different. So that'll be really cool for you to write those things down. And then we're being specific. So an example would be yellow, green at the tips and margin, but deep green in the center of the leaf. And when you're making observations, I would encourage you to avoid making assumptions, like, you know, wilted petals on a leaf often we think means that the plant's dying. But, you know, instead of just assuming that it's dying or not enough water, you know, just note that I noticed wilted petals on the darker, larger flowers. You know, just something like that. And then you can ask your why question. I wonder why. I wonder if it doesn't have enough water. I wonder if it's an older flower. I wonder, you know, whatever those questions pop up. Oh, and then here's a tip. And then when you think you're done with your page, add 3 more observations, because sometimes our brain, I don't know, I call it like the inner critic, or the ego or resistance within us is going to say, no, you've done enough, let's just go play, let's do something else. But when that message comes up, I think I'm done, just see if you can, like, look a little more closely, look at a different, like, maybe get down really low and see what's underneath, you know, and see what's there. Okay. Oh, and I wanted to go back to this example here. You know, as always, you know, our nature journal entries are most powerful if we can include metadata. And that means putting the date, the time, the location, the temperature, if you happen to have it, or if you don't have a thermometer, you could say it's cold. It's really cold, or it's really warm, or, you know, some other kind of descriptive word. You can put the name of the thing if you know what it is, and if not, that's okay, you can leave it blank. You can, so this example here is a bird. This person, Ronan, was a 13-year-old, saw this bird flying around, and he is noticing how the bird interacted with the tree, and what other birds he saw around, so in a little list here. And then he wrote down how the bird was singing, you know, a description, and a map down below of a plan view from above, right, showing where this bird was with respect to those trees. So I'm just going to show you some examples of different things that you can put on your page. Not that you need to put all of these on here. I mean, those of you who are new, I'm just going to give you this information. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just know that you know, you're going to start simple, and I'll give you tips on how to start that when we get closer to the time. So what other ways can we add information in our journal? So one we are kind of touched on was a map. Another thing we can put on there is climate, or a shady spot, or maybe if you have any ideas, maybe put in the chat. What other things can we put on our nature journal page that might help us describe what we're seeing, other than just the way that it looks or the color, or, you know. And then maybe Brian, I can't see the chat box while I'm in screen share, so maybe you can let me know if there's any ideas there. Let's see, I wanted to go So as you're putting in the chat box, go ahead and type in like some other ideas that you think of that maybe we can include on our page today. And I'm going to share a few pages here. So we talked about zooming in. So this is a close-up of this flower, which is a close-up of this flower here. So you might, oh, go ahead. Is someone speaking?
There are a few questions.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So in the chat box, one is, was the species in a clump, large clump, or just a few? Which
Yep.
goes to the quantity question and how we display that. There's time of day.
Yep.
The senses, how it smells, feels, sounds.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, put those in
There.
there. Patterns of distribution, like this tree, I noticed that the pine cones were only on the top branches, but the flowers were on the bottom. And that was just really bizarre to me. And so it just, stimulated some questions that, you can put on the bottom. Cross section is another cool one. So on this picture on the left, you'll see this long, skinny, it looks like a branch, but it has all these scales. These are tiny little, what I think are leaves. And so I put a little line through it to show that I'm going to do a cross section. And then I showed over here what the profile of, if I took a knife and cut that branch, what would that, and then looked inside, what would it look like? And I drew a circle to show that that is cylindrical, right? That object instead of flat or triangular. So this cross section, this simple line that anyone can do this, draw a line and then draw what you think that cross section might be if it's something that you can't cut, to give the sense of what a little bit more information. Let's see. So something you might notice is maybe different stages of the flower, like on this this picture here.
There are a couple other questions.
Yep.
So if the plant, is it in a sunny area or shady? What's the location? For birds, what kind of foraging activity do they exhibit? And then there's a question, do you do each page in 1 hour sitting?
Okay, good question. So going back to the animals, I didn't really talk about animals because I was thinking plants are easy to start with because they don't move. But if your study species today is a bird, for example, then write down what it's doing. Is it sitting? Is it walking? Is it hopping? Because some birds can't walk, alternately. They have to hop. Is it on a tree? Is it pecking at something? Is it looking around? Is it flying? Those kinds of things are really great. And then the other question about, does it have to be in 1 hour? No, this is not about the, okay, so let me step back. This whole nature journaling journey, I see this as a process and not about the product. So nature journaling is like, we produce images like this, but it's not about the image. It's really about the building the skills and on how to observe. So I know that we all know how to see things outside, right? We have vision, but sometimes we see things all the time and we tune it out and we don't really see it anymore. I think some of you have mentioned that doing some of these nature journaling exercises has made you see your everyday plants in your yard in a different light. And so this is what nature journaling is building, is that. So when you go out and you only have 30 minutes, then just take the 30 minutes, right, and sketch it. But I encourage you to sketch live from a living object. And then if you have to leave or life happens, you have kids, or it gets dark, or it's busy, then you can revisit that page later on. But if you had recorded all of those questions and things as they come up, you can come back to it later and you can fill in the color that you remember or fill in some more details. So the powerful part of these exercises is about actually seeing nature, right? Whether it's in your hands, inside your house, or it's outside. And like I say, it doesn't have to be, a grand Yosemite landscape. It can be your humble, planter box or house plant. let's see, and then doing close-ups of what you see. So this was a frog and tadpole, and just had some questions about it. And then I went home later and I looked up about California red-legged frogs, and then I wrote here the website that I got it from, because you know, as a scientist, we were trained to know where our sources are, so that we're not looking at sources that are unreliable and repeating that false information or inaccurate information to others. So that's just kind of my training. So what I do is, and I encourage you to do the same, if you really want to get in depth with the plant that you think is in your yard, you know, go, you know, instead of going to, you know, Joe Schmo's blog. Joe Schmo might be a plant expert, that's different, but like, you know, just some random person that says, hey, I think I know what this is, and giving you all kinds of information. Go to a reputable source. You know, a lot of universities have websites. I can share some different sites with you. This one, for example, for CaliforniaHerps.com is awesome if you've got a frog or a lizard or a snake, some kind of reptile, and it gives you great information. All About Birds and Audubon, great for all things birds. So there's going to be a lot of different websites that you can rely upon to deepen your understanding. So first we go into nature, we observe, write down what we see, ask a lot of questions. And then if we want to, we can dive deeper. We could go to a resource and look at what's there to deepen our understanding. Okay, so were there any questions about the activity?
No other questions.
Okay. All right, so I thought maybe in preparation for our drawing session, we would do a couple exercises. One of them we did last week, and I'm going to add a second one that's new to our group. You may have done it before. So the first one is a blind contour. So I'm going to do this along with you on my little whiteboard, and I'm going to show you a picture. And if those of you who are new to blind contour, it's common in a lot of, you know, drawing, for drawing, warming up. I'm going to show you a picture. And you're going to look at this picture, and with your eyes, and you're going to put your pen on your paper, and you're going to start drawing, but you're not going to look at your paper. You're going to look at the picture, and you are going to go use your eyes and trace the edges of this image with your eyeballs while you are drawing on the page. And this is going to help train your hand and eye to work together. Right, hand-eye coordination, and then just kind of loosen up your hand in your mind so that you can start sketching. All right, so no looking at your page that you're drawing on. So grab a piece of paper. Everyone try this. It doesn't work if you're just watching it on the screen. So grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, pencil, crayon, marker, whatever you've got, and I'm going to show you a picture. You can just focus on the main lily if you want. You don't have to do all the details of the buds, but you know, try putting in some of those details in the flower. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to do this along with you, and you'll have maybe about 30 seconds. Okay. So you can look to see where you're going to put your pencil on the page. And then so you're just going to trace around each little, I think I'm going to put some details of the veins. And then just notice how the edges of the petals, how they ruffle. And you go down and look at the stamen and the little pollen anthers. All right, how'd you guys do? Yeah, thumbs up. I can only see a few at a time. All right, and what does your picture look like? Mine's not so bad. Usually it looks really weird when I do these. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so we can laugh about them, right? Because this is just loosening up our brain. Okay, so the next exercise is doing this. It's a modified contour. So you get to look at the lily when you're drawing, and you can go back and look at your page to orient your pencil, but leave the tip of the pencil on the page. So it's going to be one continuous line. Okay, so try the modified contour, the same flower. So you can add some more detail if you're able to look back at it. All right, how about a few more seconds to wrap up? All right, how was that experience? Anyone want to unmute and share what that was like while others are wrapping up? Did you notice all of the little crenulations on the edges of the petals? Like when you're drawing, you notice details that you wouldn't see at first glance. Like if I showed you this picture and you just looked at it and looked away, you might not notice, you know, how the center of the petal, that ridge that comes over and curves in, or how many anthers there are inside. Or maybe that the overlapping petals, that like I see 3 overlapping petals in this, like in the center, and then there's 3 petals on the outside that are like kind of in a different ring, right? So when we draw a picture, even something simple, this is from Unsplash, is a website that's royalty, what is it called? Open source or free images that you can use for any purpose. You just go there and you can type in anything: tree, bird, person, camera, and it'll show you pictures that you can, you know, take a look and start drawing. Or you could just go online on any website if you're just drawing and practicing. It's a really great way to strengthen the muscle. So it's not necessarily about drawing a lily. It's more about the process, right, of your brain and your hand being friends and working together. Okay, all right. I think, let's see, so that's the modified contour. And we just did that. And I was going to do another one, but maybe you guys can do this on your own. You'll pick a picture and then just do another contour drawing if you feel like you want to warm up. I found that, you know, it just gets my hand like loosened up. And then I just want to share, I'm doing an online class that is an introduction to nature journaling. So we're going to cover a lot of different aspects to get you more comfortable with the basics and some practices. And I'll be enrolling folks for a starting time in May. I don't have the exact date yet, but stay tuned. If you're interested, send me an email. It will be a small class. I want to keep it more personal so that you can have more personalized instruction and conversation. And I also offer some one-on-one time if you have like, you know, specific questions and certain skills that you'd like to build. Okay, and before we go, for those of you who won't be back, you can reach me through the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club, and it's on Facebook. You can find me there. I'm also on the Nature Journal Club as well, but this Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club is our group. You're welcome to join us. You can send me an email if you have any questions. If you're not on Facebook, sparkinnature@gmail.com. I have a newsletter that goes out, so if you prefer to get an email notification, please send me an email. And if you appreciate today's nature journaling and would like to support more sessions, you can send a donation through PayPal at paypal.me/alpacamel, or if you prefer Venmo, it's at Melinda-Nakagawa. And oh yes, Brian.
Oh,
Did you
there
say
was a question about how we sign up for the your personal class once that's available.
yes? Sign up for the class.
Will you put that for your newsletter?
I'm going to announce that through my newsletter, and also in the Nature Journal Club. But you can send me an email if you want to know as soon as I post it, so that you can get in. Because I'm only gonna, I think I'm gonna keep it to 6 or 8 students, just so that we have a more time together, right? More personalized time. So you can send me an email. You can reach me through Facebook as well. Okay, so today's activity, species account page. So don't feel like you have to finish it today, right? Today's just going to be a start. It's a practice. And also remember, I didn't discuss it today, but we talk about growth mindset. That means that if we believe growth mindset, the idea is that these skills are learned, that we're not born with the ability to do all these different things, all kinds of skills, right? Walking, riding a bike, drawing a picture. That if it's a skill, then it can be learned. And it gets learned through repetition. And I know that I've nature journaled by myself for most of the 20 years that I've been doing this, but it wasn't until recently in the last year that I started to share my nature journaling with others. And it's really like explosive growth, I have to say. You know, the more that I share with others and learn from others, it enhances my learning as well as the learning in the community. So, you know, I encourage you to just keep trying and know that the only fair comparison, a mentor told me this, Melinda, the only fair comparison is you now with you in the past. So it's not fair of me to compare myself, my drawing, my nature journal page, my skills, my abilities to anybody else's, right? So we're all on our growth journey, and we all start in different places. So I want you to just honor that, you know, you're exactly where you need to be, and this is a really friendly community that we, you know, share, and we encourage each other. So today's activity, the species account, pick one thing in nature. And it could be a bug, a rock, a tree, and try to add as many details as possible and use words. If you're not comfortable with drawing, just go ahead and use words in a simple sketch. It doesn't have to be, you know, a botanical illustration, right? I mean, that's a different kind of use for drawing, but today we're just observing and sketching what we see. And if you're having a little trouble easing into your nature journaling today, I encourage you to go out, and we've talked about how to do a sit spot, but just briefly, just go out and you can sit on your front porch or, you know, by your plant, wherever you're going to be. And for 5 minutes, you can set the timer, just use all your senses and see what you can observe with your hearing, your eyesight, your sense of touch. Touch the plants around you, smell the plants around you, and you know, just wait until you kind of feel settled. Or try a new spot in your yard. You know, if you've been going around in your yard nature journaling, try a spot you haven't gone to. Maybe the corner in the lot near the compost bin. Maybe there's something really interesting there that wants to be drawn. Weeds, you know, are just plants whose what is it? A weed is a plant whose virtue has not been discovered. So the weeds, I think you know, I might do a weed, who knows, out there, and just give it some attention, you know, and some observation, and see what you can learn. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or unmute and ask them. Otherwise, we'll be back at 11:30 with whatever stage your page is in.
Margaret's asking if we're going to share our pages later.
Yes, yeah, that's part of the growth process, right? And if you don't feel comfortable sharing, it's totally fine. You can watch other people's shares, because that's part of the learning process too, is seeing how someone else saw, you know, their plant or tree is a really great learning experience, right, Brian?
That's right, absolutely. You also have a accidental typo on your
thank you for letting me know.
last page that someone caught, so it's not so friendly. So
thank you so much. And Marlene, okay, Let's
So a
see.
few
Oh,
people aren't going to make it because of
that's
other
okay.
conflicts this afternoon, but they'll post
Yes.
stuff.
Will you post it? Oh, yeah. So those of you who can't come back, please post your image on the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club Facebook page so that we can all learn from this activity and your personal experience. Okay.
I think that's about it on our end.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Some folks are going, okay, have some other things going on. Thank you for the typo. That's what happens when I'm typing half hour before class. Okay, new message. All right. Okay, folks. I am going to log off and we'll be back at 11:30 Pacific time. And hope to see you guys. Yep. All right. We'll see you in a little while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Okay, bye.